Previously on This Keane Life.
So zucchini bread next, and then I'll probably do the Snickerdoodle cookie bar for the next one.
So here we are working on processing our zucchini for our zucchini bread. I sliced up the zucchini into manageable pieces and looked and saw how thick the seedy area was, as you can see there. And so I sliced down the usable parts on the outside and cut out the seeded areas before shredding that up. And there you see my my pupperoos with their air snacks, as we call them. So now that I've sliced up enough here of the zucchini, I want to go ahead and process it and see what kind of volume I'm looking at, if it's going to be enough to do all of the zucchini bread or not. Spoiler, it's not. I have to process a little bit more, but that's fine. And a little bit about this food processor. I absolutely adore it. My husband got it for me, I think, as a gift recently. And it has made shredding anything from zucchini to cheese. And I use it for cabbage also quite frequently. It makes everything very, very quick to process. And the longest part is washing it, but it's dishwasher safe. So I just throw it in the dishwasher and I don't have to worry about anything. I don't buy any shredded cheese, any coleslaw, any of that anymore with this food processor. It makes my life much easier. And so I buy blocks of cheese, and if we run out of shredded cheese in the fridge, then I just shred another block of it. But here I am going through and pulling out the bigger chunks. There's always some big chunks at the end that didn't quite get shredded by the food processor, and those turned into air snacks again from my little Europa back there. She's not really little, but Europa enjoys the zucchini snacks. So I noticed there wasn't enough zucchini to make all of the zucchini bread we needed to do, so I went ahead and processed more. Same thing, cut out the seeds and shred it down, throw it in that bowl that I have, so I have it all easy to measure out, so that I can try to slide through the batches as quickly as possible. So now we're working on the first batch of zucchini bread. This called for 3 large eggs per batch. One cup of vegetable oil is what the recipe has. I don't like using oil. I instead prefer to use applesauce. Just my preference. So it's 1 cup of applesauce. The recipe called for 2 1/4 cups of white sugar. I did about 2 cups of white sugar. I usually cut the sugar back a little bit when it comes to following these types of recipes, just because I find them to be very, very sweet. I think 2 cups of white sugar was still quite a bit, but it worked with this particular recipe. And here we're adding 3 teaspoons of vanilla. I don't measure with the measuring spoon. I just eyeball it and it works out rather well. And now we're doing our flour. So 3 cups of all-purpose flour. That right there is a cup and a half measuring spoon, or measuring cup, which I really like. It definitely has made it faster when it comes to cooking, and not very many places offer that 1.5 cup measuring cup, and I use it for all of my bread baking. And here we're adding baking soda. We're going to do baking soda and baking powder, 1 teaspoon of each. And now we're adding 1 teaspoon of salt. And I sifted off to the side because 1, I'm short, and 2, that's a really big bowl, and I was afraid I was going to end up with flour all over myself, which I tend to do when it comes to baking. So I pulled it off to the side to make that a little bit less of a mess, and then I can just sweep the floor after. And then it's time to mix the dry into the wet ingredients. Just dump it in, thoroughly mix it together. The recipe also called for chopped nuts. I don't typically like adding nuts into breads without knowing about allergens, and since I was making this for all of the teachers and staffs at my kids' school, I wanted to make sure that we didn't have any potential issues, so I just omitted the nuts. This is where I realized I forgot to add the tablespoon of ground cinnamon. I was looking at the dough or the batter and it didn't quite look right, so I went ahead and added that in. It should have gone in with all of the other dry ingredients. And of course, to make the release easier for anything we're baking, I spray the pans with, I think it's a canola oil spray that I got from Costco. And here I'm showing you now what the batter looks like after it's been thoroughly mixed. And we'll see how much it fills with those pans. And I'm checking the recipe to make sure I didn't miss anything again, like I did with the cinnamon.
So last night I finished up the 2 dozen zucchini breads. They're all very full. So now I need to put the lids on them and label them. I believe it's turned out really well. Feel like I need. And last I'm going to make some Snickerdoodle cookie bars. Here in a little bit. First, it's time for breakfast after dropping off my lunch kids at school. So we're gonna have some breakfast, and then and we'll get into making Snickerdoodle cookie bars. We are gonna make the Snickerdoodle cookie bars, Snickerdoodle bars, blondies, whatever we want to call them, for as my last recipe for Teacher Appreciation Week. So I'm doubling the recipe. I'm doing a few of them, just like I did with the other ones. Butter hands. Are you open? No, you're not. I haven't used my kitchen in so long. Okay. So this is very soft butter. Cup. I should have gotten the spatula, but we'll just use the whisk. I read through this just a little bit ago, and I'm pretty sure we cream both sugars because it takes granulated sugar and brown sugar. We cream both of them together until, until light and fluffy. And then mix in the egg and vanilla, which I forgot to pull up that. It's okay, I can do that while the butter is creaming. So we need 2/3 of a cup brown sugar, 1 cup granulated sugar. One half and 4 cup. I love these little things. My brown sugar from being awful when it is dry. This is the wrong measurement. This is the one. I want, okay, that's this one. But it is so dry here. I think right now my humidity in my house is like 17%. I love yours on them. Okay. 1/3. I didn't say. That's what we did. 2/3. Now I need to refill. I'm leaving it close to the top because I end up with something already.
So this is a double batch we're making here. I love those little terracotta moisture releasers. I don't even know exactly what they're called, but because it's so dry here, my brown sugar turns into a rock in no time at all. So anytime I get into the brown sugar, I try to make sure that it's still moist, and there you saw me throw it into a cup of water so that it can pull in more moisture for this addition I'm making to the brown sugar because it was almost empty. It's been so long since I've used this. It's funny, I bought this thing when I was, must have been just 18. Oops. So I bought it when I was 18. Well before I met my husband. I didn't meet my husband until I was 19. It's about to turn 18. Anywho, so I bought this thing
because I found it on a super deal. I didn't even really bake all that much, but it was like $100 for it. And I figured, why not? Everybody loves having a KitchenAid that I knew that did baking and cooking, and I didn't even know how to cook at that age, and I bought it. And now, a lot of years later, 3 kids, 15 years of marriage, still using the exact same KitchenAid, which is really nice. One day I do think I want to upgrade it, but this thing has treated me very well and has done great for me with any baking that I use it with. I do a lot of baking that I don't use it with, like all of the other recipes I did, but that's okay. All right, so we have 1 cup butter, 2/3 cup brown sugar, 1 cup granulated sugar in here, nicely creamed. And so like fluffy, then we mix in the egg and vanilla. So it's 2 eggs and 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Like earlier, I measured vanilla with my heart, so I'm not gonna pull out a measuring spoon for that. But we are locked. We'll do 1, 2.
And there we added 1 teaspoon of vanilla, again measuring with your heart, or 2 teaspoons, excuse me, because it's a double batch of vanilla, and 2 eggs.
Until combined, adding flat, mixing words, flour, salt, baking powder, cream of tartar, and cinnamon until the flour mixture disappears. I have this thing with sifting everything, so I'll probably sift it first. Don't feed the doggies your treats. Two and a half cups of all-purpose flour. What measure do I have in here? Thank you. Or half a cup. Yes, half a cup. Half. One. 2. I don't know why I said 2. It's 1.5. And that was 2, 2.5. Alright, so 1 teaspoon baking powder. Half a teaspoon of salt. Half a teaspoon. That's half. 1 teaspoon baking powder. Teaspoon salt. Of course, every which way. And then half a teaspoon of cream of tartar. 2 teaspoons. Suddenly, I don't know why I spaced that. 1, 2. So I'm gonna mix this together and then I will add it in. I should scrape it out again. Move it away from the laptop so I'm less likely to get flour. Use the laptop while I sift it. So now we mix 3 tablespoons granulated sugar and cinnamon to give it some almonds. Sugar. I'm gonna measure because why? And I'll just set it aside for whatever it is today. See if it looks right with mix it up. I like more cinnamon than most. Good. And now we have to put it in a baking dish. I'm using IP13. And let's try not to throw things off the counter today, Melissa. Okay, so funny story. The Snickerdoodle is actually my husband's favorite cookie. So when he told me this, we were barely married, newlyweds. We had just bought our first house. And I was like, oh, I'll be a nice wife, right? I'm gonna make my husband some cookies, his favorite cookie. So I did. Never had one before. Never made it before. So I found a recipe online and decided, hey, I'm gonna try it. So I did. And I spent a couple hours in the kitchen because this made a large batch of cookies. Like I said earlier, when we first got together, I really didn't cook much. I could make simple things, but I didn't really make much in the way of meals. He actually did most of the cooking when we got together. Kind of miss those days. But I spent hours working in the hot kitchen trying to make him some Snickerdoodles. It was either his birthday or something like that. I think it was before we had kids. And I'm getting a little cinnamon sugar happy over here. And so I made him for him. And just as I'm done, he comes in and he tries one. And he gives me this look of, this is gross. I can't believe you made this. And so here I am, very young, 19, 20. No, I must have been 21 at that point. So we married in our house, 21. Yes. Okay. So he looks at me like, ugh, this is gross. And he tries so hard to keep up this distaste and disgust of the hard work that I put into it, and then cracked a smile. And at that moment, I knew he was giving me a really hard time, being a little playful guy that he is. And he smiled and said it's one of the best Snickerdoodles he's ever had. Then he tells me we've been married 15 years. This year will be 15 years. That I don't make him enough Snickerdoodles. And I remind him every time that he was not very nice the first time I made him Snickerdoodles. And he should have been completely clear the first time that he loved the Snickerdoodles I made, and then maybe I would make him more. But these ones are for the teachers and the staff and their bars because they're way easier than making cookies and putting them in there and only doing a dozen at a time and having the oven hot for a long time. This way is a way that I enjoy. And one of these days I will put this darn bowl in here properly. Maybe it'll be today. Hey, it is today. So now, just like I did with the oatmeal chocolate chip cookie bars, I put some in 8x8 tins to give so that the office staff could just have a container. And then these ones I'm making, and I'll do the packaging. Do I have any right here? I do. Close to this for the teachers, and each teacher will probably get a couple because almost all of them have families, and I know a lot of them, and I feel bad if not everyone got one. So I'm going to do some in the 8x8s for the office staff, and then I'll probably what I do now, and I'm wondering if I could fit a quadruple batch. It's probably not a good idea. I'll just do 2 more double batches. Let's get these in the oven. Have a good one.